I'm going to tell you a story. Parts of this story will be false. They will have been fabricated by me. This is because this story involves minors, children, and I believe that it is my responsibility to ensure that the privacy of these children is maintained. The major contentions in this story will be true. Something I suppose you'll have to take my word for. So, my mother was a teacher at Springfield Elementary, a second grade teacher, for about 15 years, most of my life. This is a story of how she got fired. So it happened one day that the principal of Springfield Elementary came down to my mother's classroom to ask about a specific student, and what my mother might have known about this student being harassed. This student had quite a tumultuous personal history, even at such a young age. Her biological father had, when she was an infant, beat her until she lost one of her eyes. Apparently, that student, then an infant, had a bad case of strep throat and would not stop crying. Her biological father, I am to understand, was and still is in prison. Child endangerment will do that. So this girl who had lost her eye had to wear an eye patch, something that the other students immediately noticed, and she was mocked for it, and she was belittled for it. A couple of times the other students even managed to steal her eye patch. But something much worse than that must have happened, because not an hour before the principal had come down to my mother's classroom, her father had burst into the building, nearly broken down the door, and demanded to speak to, in the words of the principal, someone very, very important. Right now. According to this girl's stepfather, this girl had asked her the day before, the evening before, how to kill herself. Because evidently a number of students that she had to go to class with had told her that she was so ugly, so disgusting, that she could never be happy, that she would never find love, and that the best thing that she could do for herself and for everyone around her was to kill herself. The way my mother tells it, the principal brushed this off. He said that the little girl was probably lying, but he still wanted my mother to keep an ear out just in case. And the way that my mother tells it, as the principal was starting to walk away, she very firmly grabbed him by the shoulder, turned him around, and said to him, "Yes, I know all about that. I've been trying to tell you about it for weeks." My mother always raises her voice a little bit when she tells that part. So the superintendent, again by my mother's account, very sheepishly said, "Oh, well, then I guess we have to do something about it." And kind of meandered off. So my mother decided that she was going to do something about it. She waited for the class that she knew that those students would be attending. This little girl with the eye patch and some of the students who had been harassing her. And she waited until she heard them say it. She heard one of them say it. "You're so ugly, you should just kill yourself." Like that, she spun around and told 3 of these students who had been harassing this girl to go to the office immediately. One of them tried to protest, but I didn't She said, "No. Office immediately." So they went. And she instructed the students for a little while longer, enough to believe that they'd be occupied until she could talk to these students. And then she went and talked to them. She told them that they couldn't do that they were doing harm to this little girl. And she suspended them for 3 days. A very minor punishment, considering the circumstances. The way my mother tells this story, she says that she felt good. Like she had done what she was supposed to do. These 3 students showed back up the next day. My mother tried to shoo them off of the grounds, but the principal said, no, don't do that. And also, you have a performance evaluation 3 days from today. So 3 days pass, and at this performance evaluation, my mother is told that suspending those students was rash, was irresponsible, and was childish. And in the end, the administration of the school decided to fire her for it. My mother and us found out later that those 3 students who had been suspended came from very wealthy families. Not middle-class people who live on Vinegar Hill. We're talking about people who live on McMansions over in Panther Creek. And the parents of all 3 of these children had lawyered up. My mother maintains to this day that the administration decided it would be easier to let go of her than it would be to get into a legal battle over a few brats. So people in my generation, I don't know about other generations, but I can tell you that people in my generation were told that our electoral system works in a very specific way. A very specific way that we have the power to influence under specific circumstances. So we did. We tried our hand at that in 2016. And we lost. Well, I guess everybody lost in 2016, but we lost first. But we were undeterred, and we tried again in 2020. And we got close. We got really, really close. We got so close that the Democratic establishment and the DNC decided to put their thumbs on the scale. And I'm sure that a lot of people are asking right now, well, okay, but what do those 2 things have to do with each other? This story that you told and the story of Bernie Sanders. Both of them are stories of systems being sabotaged. More specifically, they are stories of systems being sabotaged because people who hold control over those systems decided that it would be easier to sabotage them than to let them play out in the way that they're supposed to. The DNC made a gamble. They gambled that if the choice was between Trump and anyone else, that Trump would lose. And maybe that's true. I don't think that's true. I've explained before why I don't think that that's true. But we can see an incongruity with that. The argument the people who support Biden will make is that we have to get Trump out of office. That if we don't vote for Biden, there will be 2 more 35-year-old Breitbart editors on the Supreme Court. That if we don't vote for Biden, then the rights of all kinds of minorities and all kinds of vulnerable people will be stripped away. That if we don't vote for Biden, then there will be more concentration camps at the border, and they will be worse than they are now. But all of those arguments rely on a faith that the system will work as intended. And the people making those arguments have already demonstrated that they are willing to break the system to spite people like me, people who supported Bernie Sanders. It's an incongruity. Or more accurately, it's a lie. How can we have faith that the system will work on any level when no one who is in control of those systems cares about whether or not it works as intended? I don't think we can. I think it's perfectly reasonable, it's perfectly rational for any person to look at the system as it is now, to look at all the things that have happened over the past 4 years, over just this year, over this primary, and say, no, I'm not playing this game. I'm taking my ball, and I'm going home. Because we've been disenfranchised. Because we've been silenced. Because the system has been sabotaged against us. Because it's just easier that way. So, when, not if, but when Biden loses in November, I want the DNC and I want the Democratic establishment to know they did this. They did this. They broke the faith that people had in the democratic system. And that is the reward that they reaped. It's all on their shoulders. Because they took the easy way out. Yeah. I think that's all I have to say about that. I'll say it out. Regular links are in the description of the video. That's my Curious Cat if you want to ask me anonymous questions. That's my email if you want me to participate in leftist projects. Send me an email. That's my Twitter if you want to see what kind of goofing off I'm doing on Twitter. My Ko-Fi is also in the description of the video. I know I always say this, but please do not feel obligated to send me money. I'm doing this because it's important to me. It's important to me that someone articulate the things that people are feeling. But every little bit does help a great deal. So if you found this meandering, furious tirade to be entertaining or informative or valuable in any way, maybe send me some money. Yeah. So anyway, vote local and take care of yourselves, alright?